Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théères, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est long, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire.
Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. Tonight, the House of Representatives appears to be moving closer to impeaching Donald Trump for a second time. That would be the first time in history that's been done. Speaker Nancy Pelosi earlier today said Trump needs to be removed from the White House, called upon the president's cabinet and Vice President Mike Pence to immediately invoke the 25th Amendment and declare the president unfit to dispatch his duties. It would immediately move the power into the hands of Mike Pence. That failing that, Congress will act.
I joined the Senate Democratic leader in calling on the Vice President to remove this president by immediately invoking the 25th Amendment. If the Vice President and the Cabinet do not act, the Congress may be prepared to move forward with impeachment. That is the overwhelming sentiment of my caucus.
You might have caught that may there, which I've been thinking about, maybe moving forward with impeachment. Now, there's new reporting tonight that Vice President Pence will not budge on the 25th Amendment. And again, why would he? He has hitched to Donald Trump for all eternity. Mike Pence, Donald Trump, those two names will be together forever. They will be judged together forever, for better or most likely for worse. And so Congressman Jerry Nadler, chairman of the Judiciary Committee that impeached the president 1 year ago, said it's time to do it again, saying, quote, I support the immediate impeachment of the president and his removal from office. In the wake of this deadly attack on the Capitol, in the face of this insurrection, we must act. There must be consequences. Those consequences must be commensurate with the offense. They must begin with the President of the United States. And Chairman Nadler is absolutely correct. Donald Trump needs to go now. It is no coincidence that less than an hour ago, the president released a stilted teleprompter video condemning the assault on the Capitol and conceding a new administration will be inaugurated on January 20th. It was clearly a bid to halt a 25th Amendment or impeachment, even as Rupert Murdoch's Wall Street Journal editorial page says he should resign. And despite his hostage video concession, it is still clear that Donald Trump cannot be trusted to hold the office for a minute longer. You know, when history comes knocking, when we arrive at these moments, it's strange and surreal because it feels weirdly normal. But our country is, I'm telling you this right now, in the midst of a national emergency as acute and severe as anything since the Civil War. It is urgently important the President of the United States be removed from office as quickly as legally possible. The President is a clear and present danger to American democracy, as exemplified by many things, but certainly by his actions yesterday. As Eric Levitz aptly put it in New York Magazine, he must be evicted from our White House immediately, our White House immediately. He must be frog-marched out of our civic life in disgrace. Amen. Donald Trump has 13 days left, not even 2 weeks. But in that time, he is the commander-in-chief of the most powerful armed forces in the world. In fact, in human history. He has access to the nuclear codes. But short of that, there's all kinds of powers that adhere to him as the President of the United States. Among them, the pardoning power, which he is now reportedly discussing to use to pardon himself, which again would be unprecedented. But above all that, yesterday, the man charged with protecting the country and defending the Constitution and American democracy led an armed mob to the Capitol and unleashed them to overrun it.
And we're going to have to fight much harder. And Mike Pence is going to have to come through for us. And if he doesn't, that will be a sad day for our country. We're going to walk down to the Capitol and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women. And we're probably not going to be cheering so much for some of them. Because you'll never take back our country with weakness.
Let's all go down to the Capitol. Don't be weak and don't cheer the ones doing the wrong thing. The ensuing assault on the Capitol building resulted in the deaths of at least 4 people. There are 4 people who are dead after that. And members of the Article 1 branch of Congress, the first branch described in the Constitution, cowering behind makeshift furniture barricades as the armed mobs rampaged around and the president rooted them on. At one point, after the Capitol's breached, as people had guns drawn in that building, the president tweeting out an attack on Mike Pence, who at that moment had been cleared to a secure room by Secret Service. It's a miracle more people didn't die. A miracle. It could have been much worse. As the Justice Department confirmed, 2 explosive devices found in the Capitol yesterday were real explosive devices. Also reports of devices outside the RNC and DNC. Today, the acting U.S. attorney for Washington, D.C. said President Trump was not off limits in his investigation. What happened yesterday? Well, he sure shouldn't be. The plain truth, this is not hyperbole or partisanship. The plain truth is that the president has been openly engaged in sedition and seditious conspiracy since he lost the election. In fact, before it, honestly. Yesterday was just the capstone of it. He needs to be removed from office quickly, and then he should be arrested and tried for sedition. That's where we are right now. Anyone who pretends otherwise is deluded, is disqualified from the sober duties of public life at this important moment. Congress needs to take the steps they can control. They cannot rely on people in Donald Trump's cabinet to do the right thing. Why would they? They're the people who have colluded with the president as he has overseen the deadliest year in American history and lied to us about an epidemic that, as of today, is killing a 9/11's worth of people every day. Senator Chuck Schumer made that clear moments after Pelosi spoke.
Speaker Pelosi and I tried to call the vice president this morning to tell him to do this. They kept us on hold for 25 minutes and then said the vice president wouldn't come on the phone. So we are making this call public because he should do it and do it right away.
The president incited a violent mob to attack the Capitol. There is no analog or precedent really for it in American history. Perhaps the caning of Charles Sumner in 1856, and 10 years later we had a civil war. It should live in infamy and blood-soaked dishonor as that moment does. And the vice president is a moral coward, complicit in all this, ducking Congress's calls. So Congress should move immediately to impeach Trump. They absolutely should not go home, as apparently many have. He sent his armed mobs into your workplace, Congress. They sent the speaker fleeing into a secure room while they ransacked her office at the president's behest. If that is not a crime, I do not know what it is. What are we doing here, everyone? Last night, Senator Mitt Romney, the only Republican who voted to remove Trump for office, and for that, he deserves credit, said we are going to have to hold our breath until Trump is gone. I have a news flash, Senator. You can't hold your breath for 13 days. Not good enough. We are in completely uncharted territory here. Everyone's grasping for the right word or analogy, whether in our own history or comparatively in other countries. And everyone wants normalcy. But this is what it is. We face what we face. The president is a threat to the republic and to American democracy.
It is Friday, the 8th of January of 2021, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner the English Bulldog is our snoozing sous chef, and our daily special is Blue Moon Spirits Fridays, because we are all night hawks in the Diner of Life. Well, we made it to Friday, which means it's going to be another tiresome weekend. So much will be happening. It's never a day of rest. Though, I'm looking forward to weekends being days of rest after 20th of this month. Yes, the 20th. Looking forward to it. Hopefully, there's not some sort of wilding happening then, but I expect it because this was sort of a dress rehearsal. Yeah, a cop got killed, but, I think they were expecting a lot more to happen. And they did have some undercover cops. Off-duty cops. So I don't know. They were wearing, all of the paramilitary gear. Faces covered, with a watch cap, ski cap, the eye holes, Roaming around the Capitol, zip ties. Looked like they had some sidearms. And they kind of looked like the guys that had wanted to storm the Michigan State House and decapitate the governor after a show trial, of course. So in terms of the paraphernalia, now I say off-duty, undercover cops because they were there. Cops from around the nation had enough money, because they get paid pretty damn well for being afraid of everybody, too. Made it to D.C. on their own dime, kind of expensive, put themselves up in the Grand Hyatt. And we got to have a talk, Grand Hyatt. Yeah, we do. But they came from around the country to take part in this insurrection. Cops. Why are they still cops? I think that we need to have internal affairs. Well, I guess we need to, investigate internal affairs and make sure there's no Nazis there. But we need to have internal affairs in every department, which I was just thinking, our little city department here, I don't think they have internal affairs. It's kind of small. So who oversees them? Well, we'll have to figure it out. But there needs to be a reckoning. We need to purge the military and law enforcement of right-wing white nationalist insurrectionists. Any insurgents in any part of our government need to be removed and, after a fair trial, jailed. I don't know. Will it re-educate them? I don't know. I'm certainly not going to put a bunch of white nationalists together so they can start a gang in prison. On the other hand, when you spread them around, then you just spread the poison around. What will we do? Maybe reform our prison system in some fashion. Can we re-educate those who are not really educated? No, I'm not saying that cops are uneducated. They got some junior college behind them, and 56 hours at the academy. Yeah, they know everything about the Constitution and the law. That's why they give them a gun. Yikes. Do you notice the people that know the most about the Constitution and the law, they never give a gun to? But these cops that traveled across state lines need to be charged with a crime, and I believe it's a felony, especially since a cop got killed. They are all accomplices to murder of a cop now. Even Donald Trump, even Rudy Giuliani, even Mo Brooks, even Ted Cruz, even that prep school populist Josh Hawley. Oh, he's all upset that Simon & Schuster is not going to publish his book. Wah. Especially a book about free speech. Wah. It's cancel culture, the leftist mob at the publishing house. It's always some leftist socialist that's to blame when you got caught as part of an insurrection, fomenting an insurrection. And why do you have a house in Virginia when you're supposed to be representing Missouri? I just don't understand. Oh, I know they have to have a domicile near where they work. But I think using your sister's address is exactly the sort of thing that gets a lot of people thrown in jail for voting illegally. Josh. Yeah, go over his writings from his prep school on. Yeah, and his great scholarship at Stanford. Oh, wow. Now, I got to tell you, just because he went to Stanford doesn't mean that, he's cream of the crop. Hell. On the other hand, I don't know. But he might have been more with the Hoover Institution than Stanford itself, since, that is, the right-wing think tank on campus. Josh Hawley, Ted Cruz, making money while the insurgents were killing a cop. Putting out fundraising emails. We're fighting for you. We're going to make sure that this leftist socialist pedophile never makes it to the presidency. Furthering the big lie. These people that were out there and the people that are advocating them being there, 40 some odd percent of the Republican Party said, yeah, it's perfectly okay to have an armed insurgency overthrow our government. Which is 20-some% of the population, which is a little less than the toxic third. But that's how toxic they are. Perfectly fine. And I guess they got some money, because they got enough money to fly to D.C., put themselves up in the Grand Hyatt. Grand Hyatt, we're still going to have a talk. I haven't forgotten about you. Yeah, they're not the salt of the earth. They are not the unemployed, the economic anxiety. No, just so poor. No. They're small business owners. They are people of means. They want more of a tax break. And they want to make sure black people don't live in their gated community. They can afford monster trucks to drive around like ISIS. Yeah, I guess you'd call them burgermeisters of sorts. What will we do with them? Well, I guess, one way to moderate social behavior is to tax them. It's called a sin tax. We'll have to figure out the schedule and the items that will be sin taxed to basically, punish them for the error of their ways. That's a start in re-education, isn't it? So much news. Got more coming up over the weekend. I can just feel it. What's on the rest of the menu here in the Bistro Cafe, part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Blue Moon Spirits Fridays? The Capitol Police finally reported an officer died from injuries sustained when attacked during the siege on the Capitol. Well, it took them a little while. It went back and forth. Maybe it was a mistake on when the officer was still on and then taken off of life support. Oh, at the top also, that was Chris Hayes breaking down why Donald Trump must be removed from office and then tried for sedition, along with his family, and you know who they are. Carrying on here in the Bistro Cafe, Boeing will pay $2.5 billion with a B to settle charges it lied about the 737 MAX crashes. Well, is that enough? I don't know. And an Internal Revenue Service error has deposited millions of pandemic stimulus payments in incorrect customer accounts. What do you mean incorrect customer accounts? Is that a nice way of saying you sent them to somebody else? Oh, my God. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where France has pledged to speed up vaccine shots after criticism of its slow rollout. And stunned EU leaders yearn for a Biden presidency ASAP. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Near the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, off to the rightish of the page, is our chat room link, and the chat room is monitored by Kelly Lincoln. Thank you, Kelly. To the leftish of that chat room link, near the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, is the link to our Patreon site. And if you could become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio, your Patreonage allows us to pay our bills, and that's very important. You know, there's a lot of transactional aspects in this plane of existence, and paying your bills is one of them. And when you do it, sometimes you can get away with a lot of stuff, really. Like resistance against the fascist takeover of our government. We still have the ability to do that, and it's because of your generosity over all these many years. If you could afford an espresso-type coffee drink and send those funds our way once a month, we stretch those dollars and pay our bills, as I mentioned, and fly under the radar. Continue resisting as the founders originally intended, oh, so many years ago. Thank you for your generosity, and thank you to those who may be so generous in the future. Gunner, the English Bulldog, is quite at work, as you can tell. Hey, buddy. All right. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, you can do so at Netroots Radio. Tom takes care of that, and thank you, Tom. I, of course, take care of me because, well, I am me, and who am I? I'm at Justice Putnam on Twitter. I post the show notes and links diary on Daily Kos about 10 minutes before showtime. Get that posted up on Twitter and other social media platforms. You should check out the show notes and links diary because that's where all the show notes and links are. And that way you can look at the source material because there's some good reportage there and good writing, indeed. Follow the show on Twitter at Cookbook West, and please pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, and really wherever podcasts can be found. You can do it off Deezer. Some people do. Okay. What is a Deezer user called? A Deezerite or a Deezerer? We'll have to find out, won't we? Okay, let's get into this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and it's not a joking matter. The line officers of Capitol Police, I believe, by and large, are not Nazis, but apparently there are some inside workers there, inside accomplices to an insurgency, as General Honore said. Yeah, he pretty much called out the Capitol Police and the Defense Department too. I suppose when you put all the pieces together, Trump getting rid of the Defense Department people, even Bill Barr stepping down, they didn't want to be a part of this insurrection. And who got put into the Defense Department spot? Yeah, sycophant. No wonder the clamps were put down on the National Guard, who were already there. Oh, you can only direct traffic while an insurgency is going on. And off-duty cops with zip ties and bombs and guns are going to take electeds hostage. That's terrorism. That's an insurgency. And a cop got killed. Kanishka Singh of Reuters brings us this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Blue Moon Spirits Fridays. A U.S. Capitol Police officer, Brian Sicknick, has died of injuries suffered when supporters of Donald Trump assaulted the legislative building, the force said, bringing to 5 the number of dead from the riot. Wednesday's breach of the U.S. Capitol building took place as lawmakers were in the building certifying the victory of President-elect Joe Biden. Officer Sicknick was responding to the riots and was injured while physically engaging with protesters, police said in a statement. I heard he got hit over the head with a fire extinguisher. That's murder, of course. He died yesterday, Thursday, after being taken to a hospital following his collapse after he returned to his divisional office. An affiliate of CBS News reported that Sicknick was a 15-year veteran of the force and 40 years old. The report said he had earlier suffered a stroke and was on life support before his death. Metropolitan homicide officials will investigate the death of Sicknick, who joined the U.S. Capitol Police in 2008 along with the Capitol Force and its federal partners, police said. Separately, yesterday, U.S. Capitol Police Chief Stephen Sund said in a resignation letter that he would step down effective January 16, and I wonder if he was in on it. Sund's resignation was sought by House of Representatives Speaker Nancy Pelosi after the federal force, charged with protecting Congress, was unable to keep Trump's supporters from storming the Capitol on Wednesday. I know there's video of apparently what looks like the cops taking the barricades down for the protesters, and fact checkers said no, they were just backing up. They didn't open up the barricades. But there is some other video of cops opening up gates and beckoning the insurgents to come on this way. We'll show you where the speaker's office is. Trump, who initially praised his supporters, later condemned the violence because he's, a mobster? Saying the rioters had defiled the seat of American democracy and must be held accountable. A woman demonstrator was fatally shot by authorities, and 3 people died from medical emergencies. Well, one woman, 34-year-old, died because she was trampled to death. And I missed what David said about the other 2 guys. But I got to tell you, I saw pictures of them, and, you really got to, drop the pounds. When you get a little bit older, you got to work harder. Jim Brown always said, it's the older you get, the harder it is to stay in shape, damn it. Got to work harder. After the rally, where Trump exhorted his supporters to fight to overturn the November 3rd election he lost, hundreds of them stormed the Capitol, forcing senators and members of the House of Representatives to evacuate as they smashed windows and looted. The NSA says that there's some top secret information that they had, and I want to know if any of those off-duty cops have laptops and other material, and who are they working for? If Trump's supporters were able to get into the U.S. Capitol with such ease, do you think for a moment that maybe some of Vlad's little green men might be there? I know that's a conspiracy theory, but shouldn't we think of that? The secessionist movements in this country are pretty much wholly funded by Russian active measures. They've only been convicted, some in absentia, others got caught while here. As Democratic leaders demanded his ouster, Trump came closer to a formal concession, acknowledging in a video released yesterday, Thursday evening, that a new administration would be sworn in on January 20th, and vowing to ensure a smooth transition. I don't trust this guy one iota. He needs to be removed from office, and as Chris Hayes stipulated, must be tried for sedition. David Koenig of the Associated Press brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Boeing will pay $2.5 billion with a B to settle a Justice Department investigation and admit that employees misled regulators about the safety of its 737 MAX aircraft, which suffered 2 deadly crashes shortly after entering airline service. Misled regulators? You mean lied. Okay, just want to make sure. The government and the company said yesterday, Thursday, that the settlement includes money for the crash victims' families, airline customers, and a fine. In Indonesia, the brother of 2 victims of the first MAX 8 crash, Muhammad Rafi Ardian, age 24, and Rian Ariandi, age 24, said he hoped the case would be settled soon and that there would be no more crashes. The 2 were among 189 who died on October 29th of 2018 when a MAX operated by Indonesia's Lion Air plunged into the Java Sea. We are entering the 3rd year now, so it can lighten the psychological burden of the family after the legal process in the U.S. is finished, too, said Anton Sahadi. The prolonged mediation process was traumatizing, he said. Prosecutors said Boeing employees gave misleading statements and half-truths about safety issues with the plane to the Federal Aviation Administration, then covered up their actions. Boeing's employees saw the path of profit over candor, said David Burns, acting assistant AG for the Justice Department's Criminal Division. Boeing blamed 2 former pilots who helped determine how much training was needed for the MAX. And CEO David Calhoun said their conduct does not reflect Boeing employees as a whole or the character of the company. Well, let's hope not. This is a substantial settlement of a very serious matter, and I firmly believe that entering into the resolution is the right thing for us to do, a step that appropriately acknowledges how we fell short of our values and expectations, Calhoun said in a memo to employees. The government will drop the criminal charge of conspiracy to defraud the U.S. after 3 years if Boeing follows the terms of the settlement. Michelle Price and Anirban Sen of Reuters brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Blue Moon Spirits Fridays, because we are all Nighthawks in the Diner of Life. Millions of pandemic stimulus payments have been deposited in incorrect customer accounts due to an IRS error, according to Intuit TurboTax, which is helping to distribute the payments. 2 banking industry sources confirmed the error, which will delay distribution of the badly needed aid. For those who don't receive a direct deposit, they should watch their mail for either a paper check or a prepaid debit card, the IRS said in a notice yesterday, Thursday. Intuit TurboTax tweeted on Wednesday, "Unfortunately, because of an IRS error, millions of payments were sent to the wrong accounts, and some may not have received their stimulus payments." Well, if they're in the wrong accounts, somebody else has them, don't they? The IRS did not immediately return a call seeking comment because, I don't know, everything's been hollowed out by the Trump administration, hasn't it? One of the sources said the IRS used old information for millions of accounts that are thought to be closed or inactive. Banks are working with the IRS to return and reroute the rejected payments to the correct accounts. But it is not clear how long this process will take, the person said. Oh, really? The Treasury Department began processing a second round of emergency payments on December 29 as part of a new congressional COVID-19 aid package. As with the first round distributed in April, millions of payments were to be directly deposited by January 4th in customer accounts the IRS had on file. The IRS determines where second stimulus payments were sent, and in some cases, money was sent to a different account than the first stimulant payment last spring. Really? Tweeted H&R Block, another tax preparation company helping to distribute payments. Wow! You mean the private industry was able to find... The IRS determines where second stimulus payments were sent, and in some cases, money was sent to a different account than the first stimulus payment last spring, tweeted H&R Block, another tax preparation company helping to distribute payments. Wait a second. How many private companies are involved in this? Is that how hollowed out the government is? Wow. Was that on accident, or was that on purpose? Rejected deposits are likely to be reissued as paper checks, although the IRS may also instruct taxpayers to file their 2020 tax return to claim their payments, the person said. The person. Okay, that brings us to our break, and I think we need it. So when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. This week, Now You Hear It. Literary or dramatic works that demand placing yourself in the protagonist's position aren't unique, but the film The Sound of Metal is one that hits close to home. Sudden, unwelcome change is always a possibility. A professional athlete's injury or the loss of a business or a career, like in a pandemic. Here we meet Ruben, Riz Ahmed, the drummer half of a touring thrash metal act, on stage with his girlfriend Lou, tearing it up at a divey bar. But then we notice the sound muffling, going in and out, and being replaced with ringing. Quickly, we learn that we're hearing through Ruben's failing ears. Desperately, he seeks out medical attention, but is told his condition is permanent unless he can somehow fund cochlear implants. Another choice presents, however. A friend, his recovery counselor actually, Ruben is a recovering addict, connects him with Joe, the leader of a deaf community. And thus we have the film's dynamic. Acceptance of a changed life, no music, no touring, a changed identity, or chasing a technological fix. Ruben stays at the community a while, starts to sign, and connects with the people there, but it's clearly hell for him. The old life beckons. He sells all his possessions to get the surgery, and as for the old life, well, watch the film, which is unbelievably a directorial debut for Darius Martyr, who scripted 2012's A Place Beyond the Pines. Martyr's close-ups capture Ruben's angst, which complement the brilliant sound design, which often switches into what he's actually hearing. Ahmed gives the performance of a lifetime here, with strong support from Paul Raci and Olivia Cook as Joe and Lou. A window into deaf culture and that of a life with no going back, The Sound of Metal is as unsettling as it is profound. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. Catch up with us at Take2MovieReview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
This is Scientific American's 60-Second Science. I'm Jason Goldman. The cheetah is the rarest big cat in Africa. Less than 7,000 adults remain on the planet. Think of it this way. For every cheetah on the planet, there's more than 4 Starbucks coffee shops. The most important cheetah stronghold is in central Namibia, but the cheetahs there don't live within national parks. They live on privately owned farmland.
There were farmers having huge problems with cheetahs, losing a lot of livestock, and there were other farmers who actually didn't have any problem at all.
Ecologist Jörg Melsheimer from the Leibniz Institute for Zoo and Wildlife Research in Berlin assumed at first that all farmers had cheetah trouble. It was just that some were more likely to complain about it. But after tracking 50 collared cheetahs, he began to suspect that there really was a pattern to their killing. By the time his team had data from 106 cheetahs collared over the course of a decade, not only was he certain that cheetahs were more likely to kill in some places than in others, but that he could solve the problem.
We indeed found these communication hubs of cheetahs, which are spread evenly across the landscape, with a high activity of cheetahs within the hubs.
Cheetahs are an asocial species, but they still need to trade information.
They don't meet physically, typically not, but they leave marks at prominent landmarks where they either use urine or feces to communicate with each other.
Think of it as a coffee shop for cats, where animals trade gossip. Even though these communication hubs only comprise around 10% of the landscape, cheetahs spend most, sometimes all, of their time within them.
This is basically a long-term tradition, which is passed on from cheetah generation to cheetah generation. Some of these communication hubs are basically known, or let's say the marking location, the marking trees were known by farmers for 60, 70 years. Like the grandfather of the current farmer already knew the marking trees in this area.
What the farmers never realized is that only some farms overlap with the cheetah's communication hubs. Melsheimer thought that if those farmers relocated their most vulnerable herds, it could be a huge help. He remembers the first farmer he tried to convince.
And I told him, look, Wilfried, I have the idea that they are actually there because of these marking trees, and you happen to have your small calves exactly in the same area. Let's try to move your herds out of this area and keep them somewhere else, and then let's measure the losses. And he was laughing at me. He said, yeah, okay, nice idea, but I'm not sure whether this is going to work. They will probably follow the calves. So we tried this, and actually it worked. And he earned much more money because he lost less calves.
After that, 35 more farmers agreed to try it out. In all, the number of calves lost to cheetah predation fell by a whopping 86%. Of course, some cattle outside of communication hubs were still lost to cheetahs, but it was at a low enough level that most farmers seemed to tolerate it. What this means is that cheetahs aren't actively following the cattle. They simply take advantage of whatever food is available nearby. If it's not cattle, then they go after wild ungulates like springbok or oryx or kudu. There are no so-called problem cheetahs who intentionally seek out cattle. Instead, there are problem areas. That's a much easier problem to solve, and it's one that doesn't result in farmers killing cheetahs. Melsheimer is now hard at work collecting tracking data from cheetahs in other parts of Africa to see whether his findings hold up in other ecosystems. So often it seems as if the goals of wildlife conservation are incompatible with the goals of commerce. But this story reveals that, in fact, biodiversity and agriculture can coexist.
Our case is really one of these nice examples where it can go hand in hand.
Thanks for listening. For Scientific American's 60-Second Science, I'm Jason Goldman.
We humans have got to get a whole lot smarter, says Elon Musk, the billionaire founder of Tesla Automobiles and CEO of SpaceX rockets. Musk is not merely reacting to humanity's recent tendency to elect lunatics to lead our countries. Rather, he's trying to warn us about the rapid rise of a radical new technology, artificial intelligence. In common parlance, he's referring to robots, but these are not the clunky, somewhat cute machines performing rote tasks. AI essentially has evolved to become an electronic brain, a web of ever more complex supercomputers interacting as one cognitive unit that can program itself, make decisions, and act independently of the humans who are creating them. These thinking machines are rapidly increasing in number and geometrically advancing their IQ, prompting Musk and others to view AI technologies in apocalyptic terms. As algorithms and systems inevitably grow more sophisticated, he says, digital intelligence will exceed biological intelligence by a substantial margin. In graphic terms, Musk warns that profiteering humans are, quote, summoning the devil by creating a new superior species of beings that will end up dominating humanity, becoming, quote, an immortal dictator from which we would never escape. What's weird is not his dystopian prognosis. Other experts confirm that runaway bot intelligence is a real threat, but his solution. The way for us human beings to compete with AI, says Musk, is to merge with it. Not a corporate transaction, but a literal merger. Surgically implant AI devices in human brains with, quote, a bunch of tiny wires that would fuse people with superintelligence. This is Jim Hightower saying, it's good to have technological geniuses alert us to looming dangers, but maybe the larger community of humanists ought to lead the search for answers.
If you'd like more of Jim Hightower's real populism, check out the Hightower Lowdown. Jim's monthly newsletter gives you the real lowdown on which corporations, by name, are doing what to the middle class, our environment, and our democracy. Each month, the Hightower Lowdown brings you facts you didn't know, along with actions you can take to fight back. It also comes with a sense of humor. Hightower believes we can fight the gods and still have fun. Plus, get this, it's cheap. Only $15 brings you 12 issues a year. For real populism, go to hightowerlowdown.org.
Before a person becomes president, is he required to swear a specific oath on a Bible? I'm Bill Newman, and this is the Civil Liberties Minute. The Constitution requires a person who is about to become president to take this oath. I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. The oath is secular. It is consistent with the founders' belief embodied in the First Amendment of a wall of separation between church and state, and is consistent as well with the no religious test provision in the Constitution. That says no religious test shall ever be required as a qualification to any office or public trust. Contrary to public belief, the presidential oath of office does not end with the words, "So help me God," and there's no requirement that the president place his hand on a Bible or any other religious book. And although the historical record is not absolutely clear, some presidents, most likely, have taken the oath without a Bible. John Quincy Adams, for example, wrote in his diary that when he took the oath of office in 1825, he swore on a, quote, volume of laws. All that having been said, nothing in the Constitution prohibits the president to be from taking the oath with his hand on a Bible or adding the words, "So help me God." So, in this instance, as with many others, the Constitution allows the individual to follow his conscience, to make an individual choice. The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the ACLU, because freedom can't protect itself.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1939. That was the day a new radio show began on CBS Radio.
Welcome to the Motion Picture Star's own radio program, The Gulf Screen Guild Show. With Jack Bentley, Joan Crawford, Reginald Gardner.
The show featured some of the biggest names in Hollywood. All of the actors' fees were donated to the Motion Picture Relief Fund. The fund was started in 1922 with the motto of taking care of our own. Proceeds from the show went to support the motion picture Country Home for retired workers in the film industry. These included actors, cameramen, set designers, and even security guards. These retired workers only paid what they could afford to live there. Eventually, the retirement home allowed working people from the television industry as well. Gulf Oil sponsored the program for its first 3 seasons. It was called the Gulf Screen Guild Show. Over the years, the show took on several other sponsors and names. It also migrated to NBC, then to ABC, and then back to CBS Radio. In all, it ran for 14 seasons and more than 500 episodes. In its early years, the show was a variety review. It included songs along with dramatic and comedy sketches. Later, the show recreated films for the radio audience. It was a challenge to get a whole film down to just 22 minutes. Films covered by the show included classics such as Casablanca, Arsenic and Old Lace, and Pinocchio. But despite the changes and challenges, the show raised $800,000 for the retirement home by 1942. The retirement home was almost closed in 2009, but continues operations. Workers in many industries have long found creative and collaborative ways to support each other and to truly take care of their own. Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Blue Moon Spirits Fridays, because we are all Nighthawks in the Diner of Life. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River and the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 39 degrees Fahrenheit, quite foggy. Expecting to be a bit warmer than yesterday with highs in the mid to upper 40s. Light rain early. We've had quite a bit of heavy rain overnight. Brought us up a little over than half an inch, and we're expecting to get, maybe a tenth or more of an inch this morning, and then a mix of sun and clouds this afternoon, winds light and variable. Partly cloudy tonight with lows in the low 30s, winds light and variable. Sunshine and clouds mixed tomorrow, Saturday, with highs around 47 or so, winds light and variable. Expecting more rain on Tuesday, bringing in another half an inch of rain. We haven't had any snow yet. I'm getting a little worried. We do need snow. Indeed, we need snow. Come on, bring it to us. Confirmed cases of coronavirus in Jackson County in the southern part of Oregon has now increased to 6,281. And we have one more death registered, now standing at 75. Pollen is rated at none here right outside the window in Rogue River proper, and the air quality index in the region is rated good at 26 parts per million, and the daytime UV index is low and ticked back down to its wintertime low of 1. Barometric pressure is rising at 30.23 inches, visibility is less than a mile, and relative humidity is at 100%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations. These people planted these personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. London is 35 and cloudy. Paris is 40 degrees and cloudy. Rome is 50 and sunny. Kyiv is 34 and cloudy. Kabul is 31 degrees with haze. Hong Kong is 44 and partly cloudy. Tokyo is 33 and clear. Sydney, Australia is 66 degrees and partly cloudy. San Francisco, California is 49 degrees and cloudy. And New York is a freezing 31 degrees. But hey, it is sunny. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property. And these people positively live around the world. Anonymous staff at The Associated Press brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Facing criticism over a slow rollout of virus vaccines with barely 500 people vaccinated in the first week, France's government pledged yesterday to speed up the jabs for the elderly. You can tell this was written in Great Britain because they use jabs instead of shots. Prime Minister Jean Castex said French citizens over 75 years old would have access to a vaccine from January 18th, replacing previous plans for next month at the earliest. The vaccines will be eligible for all in that age group, not just those in nursing homes. Castex also said France would be spreading out Pfizer vaccine doses by 6 weeks instead of 3, which brings the country closer to the spacing being carried out in Britain at 12 weeks. In a flurry of virus-related announcements during his televised address, Castex also dashed the hopes of France's famed restaurant industry for a reopening this month. It is out of the question that we lower our guard, he said, adding that restaurants and bars would remain shuttered until mid-February at the earliest. French restaurants have been closed since October. President Emmanuel Macron has said restaurants and bars might be reopened in January if daily infections fall below 5,000. Castex said that since they were hovering around 15,000, a relaxation is not yet possible. A national curfew starting at 8 p.m. in most places will also remain in force until at least January 20th. It comes as French authorities are reinforcing the monitoring of containment measures in light of new, potentially more contagious variants of COVID-19 in the country. A health ministry statement that said that as of yesterday, Thursday, 19 cases of the so-called Kent variant, which first emerged in southeast England, had been detected in France. 3 cases of the South African variant have also emerged. Authorities are concentrating their efforts on 2 suspected variant clusters in the northwestern region of Brittany and in Paris and its suburbs.
Je te donne c'est mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle, c'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Rafe Cassert of the Associated Press brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. For European Union nations, Joe Biden's January 20 inauguration as the next U.S. president cannot come fast enough. Following the storming of the U.S. Capitol by supporters of Trump, most national governments have shed any inhibition at aiming withering criticism at a sitting U.S. president. Several already embrace his rival as a beacon of hope to rebuild transatlantic ties that have crumbled over the past 4 years. Trump is already a thing of the past, Prime Minister Antonio Costa of Portugal said. I don't dabble much in provocation, but for me, this page is turned, EU Council President Charles Michel also said. All eyes are now on the future and Biden. Italian Premier Giuseppe Conte said Italy can't wait to work with President Biden. There are U.S. interests and EU interests that must both be defended, each on their own side, Costa said. However, We must remain on friendly terms, the allies, and we hope that we will be able to overcome any difficulties we've already experienced. To smooth the way, the EU has already invited President-elect Biden to visit Brussels at the earliest opportunity, which Costa hopes might be during Portugal's 6-month presidency that ends in June. After 4 very barren years that we have lived through, we are now looking forward to 4 more fruitful years, he said. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day and the week, but you do know Netroots Radio will broadcast on. And we're going to meet up on Monday for River City Hash Mondays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks. And we'll meet up here on Monday, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Robe à fleurs, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.